mean that hybrids are bad in the sense that, people keep saying, they keep looking at some of the issues among humanity, and they starting, saying these people are good and these people are bad type things. No, don't look at it that way. Look at it realistically for what it is. The hybrid Europeans, among the hybrid Europeans, many of them have maintained and cultivated their animalistic form, which is also why over the centuries, why many nations have always haven't been having a problem with some of the hybrids, because of some of them have still continued to display a very beastly nature of bloodletting, blood sucking, um, killing humans, doing cannibalism, etc., which continues to this day. And these are some of the problems that are actually plaguing us, that are coming out, that a lot of people, when they're looking at it as something kind of new or really strange. And we're talking about some of this stuff because it's not new and it's not strange. It's strange. It's strange to the human. And then many of us kind of being uncomfortable because of the hybrids, mistreating our people, and they hide it under the subcategory of connotative linguistics known as the Linnaeus and the Blumenbach operations of taxidermy, and they'll call it racism and prejudice, etc., which is a cover up for a lot of the real truth about humanity and our condition. So when you're looking at what many of our Bantu tribes here at North America would refer to as the paleface, they were talking about the paleolith or the heterogeneous hybrid. And of course, you already know, we don't have to tell you that in these last couple hundred years, we've been having extreme problems with the hybrids. But we need to be honest, and we need to start looking at things as they really are and having some comprehension of really what's been going on, so that whatever decisions we make, whatever administrative operations we develop among ourselves, in relationship to others, etc., are based more on truths than on emotional responses and dogmatic, non-linear, not grounded, and not truthful concepts that have been taught under the anthropomorphic structures, some of which we ourselves have structured for teaching, because the customs of Africa have been to create metaphors or to tell stories in metaphor, to transfer information, etc., stuff like that, and to preserve. Uh, in another way, some of the methodologies that we use for maintaining customs and traditions and knowledge has been what you call mythology. And by some of these, what they would refer to, that is common when the Moors ruled, was known as the seven liberal arts, rhetoric, you know, when you're talking about grammar, etc., these disciplines aren't taught now in school in the way they were, years ago. And so a lot of points of reference that people would use as a tool, etymologically, epistemology, etc., orthology, things that were common, just simply common parts of erudition that you would call education today, of not being availed to the people. Sometimes when you go into some of these things, it appears to go past the people when it actually shouldn't, because it's actually elementary stuff. However, the hybrid European himself will tell you he's a hybrid. And this is, again, why they have problems with the sun. And so a lot of our people, when you see people talking today, like we were talking today, Dr. Naila, about the chemtrails, and they've been using the chemtrails to make the people sick, to continue their extermination programs. you know, because they're attacking humanity more and more open now. They're not hiding it as much as they used to. However, people must understand that because of the hybriding, the nervous system of the heterogeneous hybrid is closer to the surface of the skin or exposed to the UV rays of the sun, and it passes through the thin and the less pliable structure of the skin, which is logically the largest organ, and it does damage to the nervous system. Also, from a biological perspective of the physical body, why some of many of the heterogeneous hybrids, you will see their bodies start breaking down at an earlier age, and people wonder why they have leprosy more often. So the leprosy that would be caused in with many of the hybrids would be today called cancer, and their lesions would become white. And this is what's talked about in the Septuaginta in the Bible as the people who were taken behind the rock until their lesions were all right before they were accepted into society. These are some of the dynamics of really blending or integrating the hybrids into society, into different areas.
May I interject? How would you explain Genesis 1, I think it's 26,
25, 26.
So when who is saying, let us make man, that scripture, how would you explain that, if at all, into the hybriding, since it says, you know, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and then you get over to Genesis, you know, chapter 2, and over there you've got man being formed out of the dust of the earth, and then you have Adam being put to sleep, and allegedly his rib being taken out, and a woman created.
Now,
so is any...
that particular part is a metaphor, and this is where you're actually talking about star systems, and also when, because Eve, everything when you're looking at ancient African culture, as an example, when you're talking about Adam, you're talking about building blocks, or you're talking about scientific molecular structure. When you're talking about Eve, you're talking actually about evolution. Now, in a grammatical sense of preserving linguistic structure, that would be also from an etymological form platform, you would be talking about etymon structure. So whenever you're looking at African culture, you got to look at it multifacetedly, and you also have to study African culture, or this is another reason why they spent so much time trying to destroy, so that they could take existing platforms and corrupt them, as an example. So when you're looking at any of your books that are in the Bible, as an example, when people look at Genesis, they're not thinking in general genetics, for one.
Right.
They're looking at what they've been told merely means beginnings. Yeah. No, you're looking at genetics.
But are you not talking about, excuse me for cutting you,
yeah,
but are we not really talking about an interjection into life that already existed?
Now, this is another thing. So you can't create something that already exists. As an example, just like in the rule of science and the rule of social structure at Midgard, you can't patent something that's natural. True. If you get the point. Something that's created implies creating something out of not that which exists, as an example. So modification is not creation in that sense of the word. Now, the other deal of it is because remember how we've been telling people, particularly more in these last few years, because we already know certain things was going to come out, that everybody that's here not necessarily from this planet.
True.
All right. Now, you know that the word God comes from good, which comes from German, which comes from Sanskrit, what actually means good, and is a verb transitive, which you already know. It's not a being. You also know that the same principles of people coming from different areas of the solar systems to Midgard and to other places. For I mean, from the fact of the matter is, from time that goes unmeasured. There is nothing that you will find on the planet at Midgard that will not demonstrate um, interdimensional or interstellar travel instruments and vehicles, etc., and all of the art, etc. And you can't put a date on it because you don't have a date on it. There's no time that you can remember when we weren't doing this stuff. What you have at Midgard is this history of a hominidae being suppressed, and then the promotion of the dogma systems of the priesthood, which sets time and date in the area of 6,000 years type thing. But this has more to do with preserving the rulership of the priesthood, etc., more than the fact. And not just that. So when you're talking, as an example, when you're talking about the ancient Sabians, right? Well, not ancient because it's really, they're here. They just don't know. Most of these people don't know their descendants. Um, when you talk about let us is plural, is it not?
It is
When you
plural.
talk about Elohim, people say Elohim. This is really a perfect example of what you call projection and misrepresentation and connotation. When you say Elohim, to most of our people, they say it means God, don't they?
Yes,
Now, Elohim is plural.
it is.
All right. So Elohim is us, isn't it? So there's a more than just a mere duality, isn't it? Isn't it? So when you see in the Bible when it says let us make man, you're actually talking about actually operative rulers and competing rulers or competing scientists. And you're talking both scientists, you're talking rulers, you're talking those who rule the high house, or what you call pharaohs, etc. Who are actually subordinate or assigned, and actually you would call the matriarchies or monarchies that evolved into the monarchies and the operations of government here at Midgard. And some of the same structure principles are actually applicable elsewhere. And logically, it's sort of like speculative to get into some of these things when the people aren't aware of how Midgard operates, including the fact that most of the people don't even know that this particular Earth is Midgard. It's sort of like trying to get into reasonable conversations with people who don't even know the Earth, and you want to talk about another place.
So
Like we
are we
talk about
talking about multi-dimensional Earth?
both
Earths?
dimensional and geography.
No, what I'm saying, are we talking about throughout the universe, other Earths? Or are we talking about
Yes,
multi-dimensional? In
it's
within the
both.
same. Okay.
It's both and all. Now, the deal of it is because we've been so closed in at Midgard, there's the concept even that we're domed and have no access out. But the doming has more to do, you know, if and not that it's never been used with technology, advanced technology that most of the people at Midgard can't comprehend anyway. Do you understand? Because our minds have been suppressed. However, but because on another level, things are being opened up to the those who domicile here in general, You know, because really what's happening, the things are collapsing, which we talk about on a what you would call a basic casual level. The Piscean constructs are dissolving. The dimensional thought patterns that were cultivated in the Piscean energy is dissolving. These are not because of, say, you will or I will it to be, but because it is by the nature of things. And because so much electrical charge is happening on the planet now, particularly with the effects of Uranus, that these things can't stay stable anyway. You know, and so what we have is this paradox of the priesthood having ruled for all these few hundred, you know, last 1,000 years or more, with this corruption and corrupting concepts of the people. They're trying to figure out what to do to maintain the stability of their de facto structures, and our people are trying to figure out how or who to vote for when this stuff is sort of like, this is so beyond the things that, you know, that we have been used to, that the people really just have to prepare their minds for uh, a lot. When you say reawakening minds, it's going to be kind of more real than people think it is on many levels. And but my concern is really to try to talk about things that we can affect more currently, you know, like more down to earth, more mundanely, and not to get outlandish. And I don't mean outlandish because it is outlandish in that sense, is because trying to, you know, argue with a child about riding a motorcycle when they have a tricycle with training wheels at that type thing. And it's not to disregard us, but it also is to project the truth of the matter is that we're going to have to advance. We're going to have to. We got a lot of makeup to do, um, based based on the artificial, not the real, the artificial suppression of humanity. Gates are going to be opened up, and so people are sometimes looking at things that they're not capable when they actually are. They actually are. It's just that it's going to be so uncomfortable for a lot of people. And I think these things have to be talked about more openly by people who kind of know some things and don't talk or talk around things, because when you talk honestly, you get attacked. And it's not so much that you're concerned with attack because you know also certain energies, but that to protect people who are around you. And but the other deal of it is, that comfort zone that the priests have had of getting away with that is being closed out. That's another reason why we're talking about this, because it's going to be opened up more and more and more at a faster and faster rate. And a lot of things that the people see in the geopolitics is kind of like a diversion in a way, but in another way reflective, because the priesthood are acting harmonic in what they know that they've done to humanity, and also uh, what can be and is being done to them now, with counter moves. And so my discussions in general is to try to encourage humanity to, you know, like Noble Drawley said, you know, the people need to learn to love instead of hate. As the truth, as truth comes out, people will recognize that a lot of the destructive, anti-evolutionary or anti-ascension attitudes was taught to them, and that is not necessarily in the nature of the people to support, or to be naive to, or to be complacent while the cannibalistic hybrids have been ruling and have actually destroyed society on at Midgard. And I think that a lot of times the way when people are looking at this, they think that Midgard itself has been in such um, a dense atmosphere prior to the Futon belt, transit, that this is permanent. My position has always been that I don't see a reason why Midgard can't be a better place for all to live, truthfully, even though it's been contaminated because the conditions are artificial for the most part. The poverty is artificial. The destructions of nations, etc., has been an artificial operation for rulership of the priesthood. And much of the problems that the people have reflective in their personal lives has been more of the jealousy work and the greed work of the priesthood and not an operation of nature at Midgard. And I think that should be addressed by the scholars, the philosophers, the true Gnostics, distinguished from people who've been claiming to be priests and religious. Not that they don't know, but they have an agenda, and their agenda has never been in the best interest of humanity at large. And then you have the other problem with the hybrids, kind of angry, because they have pretty much stolen the earth. In some ways, they've gained the whole world, and yet the sun that gives life is seeking to kill them. They have that. They have that personal, physical affair with the sun, which is why they're doing another reason upon multiple reasons why they're doing chemtrails and other um, putting other metals in the air like aluminum, barium, and other medicine. I mean, other germ warfare to make the human sick. It's sort of like robbing the world and recognizing they're not going to be able to necessarily enjoy the spoils. It's sort of like trying to kill off the true people of the earth, trying to steal the earth, and the sun, that is one of the governors of this particular sphere or place to live, is seeking to kill them itself, which is beyond the geopolitics on the surface. That's an interesting dynamics. Now, executures. I'm going to go into executures so that the people can look at executure and understand the operations or how the hybrids think when they're operating their governments. Um, the executure. Now, when you're looking at the takeover operations of Phoenicia or the Iberian Peninsula, and then you look at the heterogeneous hybrids, or what we refer to as the hybrid Europeans, corrupting the platforms of structure of government. The executure is that department of the English government which has charge of the collection of the national revenue, or now what you would call under, say, Canada, the U.S. Corporation Inquisition operations, Fleet Street, England, the Circle Church and the Chancery, Queen of England, etc., Windsor's, etc. You would call that, the IRS. That would be the Treasury Department. And as you all know, for those who know geopolitics, that the defunct Treasury Department of the United States Corporation Company, which was been defunct, I think, was since about 1921, in that area. That and the enforcement of the Inquisition operations known as the IRS. The IRS has been blended into the Treasury Department, which is really the executors chamber, etc., of operation. And so you would be dealing with the chancery, or what they would call the chancery courts of England, operating via the Bar Association to run the court systems of human trafficking and human trade at North America, and the judicial systems, which they've been doing actually for years. I would venture to guess, when people are talking about Woodrow Wilson and Jekyll Island, and they're talking about the absence of gold and silver, etc., that they may wisely look back to 1861 and look at that operation, etc. So you look at the neutralization or the capturing of the legitimate republic platform structured by virtue of Ordinance of 1787 and the Constitution for the United States, introduced for their operations here under treaty by the Honesty Confederation of Moors, etc., which is a political confederation, not a tribe in the concept that the people have been told. So when you look at that breaching, the breaching of the entire political platform, you can comprehend even, say, with the operations of the Inquisition, revenue services not really being operative, which is also why you see them sending out these so-called checks. Checks, you notice how to say checks? They're coming from the exchequers chamber. They are. And so you'll see the praetors are battling to try to maintain the platform structures of Piscean constellation energies, and it can't survive. Problem is, uh, they're keeping the people diverted from really looking at these things, because so many of them shall be and are and should be held guilty of both misprision of treason and crimes against humanity, um, as a starter. Now, if and as things progress particularly in this cycle of 20, what they refer to as 2021, which is really not the real date. We'll get into that later because I don't want to get diverted. Um, Things will be introduced, probably, and I can't say because I don't have what you call inside knowledge on that, but I do know from mental projection the direction that it's going. And they're going to release, they're going to be forced to release, not that they want to. Some of the technology that we talked about earlier, like this, that will actually um, move towards stop attacking Midgard itself, to maintain really beyond obsolete technology that we've been using for hundreds of years, not just the last 100 years or the last couple of hundred since the hybrids have been occupying North America. Because the truth of the matter is that the technology and the disciplines of, say, as an example, 20,000 years ago is more expansive, more comprehensive than what exists now, etc. So, but I would look at, more likely they're going to probably expose more the energy technology. That's the energy output, etc. And that would be inclusive in both of your travel principles or vehicles, etc. But it will be introduced in such a way that while it disrupts the dogma systems, which they must go all together, um, it will disrupt almost every established organizational system of both transportation, energy transfer, heating systems, what you refer to as the electrical grid now, which is kind of like very base. That's really very base. But for people to look at it, we'll just say the electrical systems. Um, and find that basically they could take a module actually smaller than this pendant,
Mhm.
and run this city, and that's the truth. Um, and this idea, that they're still promoting, the monetary system the way we use things now. That had more to do with maintaining control over the people than it had to do with actual necessity. So there's this mentality that the moneta, the mint system of Yakimthaler operations is an important construction within organized society, and that's not totally true. It has been more, we've been groomed to it, and so we look at that as a necessary methodology. But the fact of the matter is, not really. And so we're going to get past that too. But anyway, to maintain, for them to maintain the health conditions on the planet, has been necessary for them to both hide the truth about the advancement of humanity on the planet, hide the fact that they've been actually warring on us, hide the fact that 90% of all sicknesses they created, because the body forms that we have are so, really, even as they are now, so advanced that the fact of the matter is that most of these things that we refer to as sicknesses, you know, can't really do us in, kind of like, and so they actually have to do what you call, or operate, like they talk about all the time, the Antichrist, and they're looking at it as some belief system. The Antichrist is really the scientific work of the priesthood to actually kill off humanity and humanity's developmental potential. That's more the Antichrist than this idea of worship that the people have.
Right, because the Christ consciousness, it's against the consciousness
That's right.
that we could obtain and should obtain in order to, reach.
But the consciousness correlates, also conjoins to other beingness.
Of course.
See,
we're connected.
The other beingness, and so this is now, then you're getting back to your cognizance about this misconception of gods. And like you said before, how like when people start debating those things with the anthropomorphic concepts, they fail to recognize that the anthropomorphic Jesus told them already that you're all gods. When they keep on having these arguments and debates about godness, God this and God that, and they don't even know what God is. And they're gods, but not in the concept that they've been using it, of competing with each other. And necessarily, concept is wrong. It just means the good. And also, when you're looking at the positions of Midgard in relationship to the seven sisters, that we know as Santa Claus's sleigh, the
Big Dipper.
Yeah, Big Dipper. When you look at the Big Dipper in his four positions of the four gates of the universe, from the position of Muhammad, and so when you say from the position of Muhammad, that means Muhammad's mountains, from the positions of the mountains, as you look into the heavens and you see the four positions of the seven sisters, it creates what you know as swastika, which is why the swastika is ancient among Africans or the people of the planet, etc., and why they used to use henna. You'll see when the daughters would choose a mate, etc., they'd take henna and they'd dress their hands up and they put swastika on there. Sometimes they put swastika on here. And then you'll see also what they would know called the mundane cross. So when you're looking at the mundane cross, you're looking at the seven sisters in the four gates. So the mundane cross is also where you call what they call in ancient Copta, the Coptic cross, where you see the cross with the circle around it. So the cross with the circle around that would represent also the seven sisters in your four gates. And so these symbolisms also in African culture actually tell the story of the heavens. And so when you're looking at um, the ephemerides as an example, it doesn't dawn on people to think what they've been thinking is some kind of warship system is actually star charting. It doesn't. They don't look at it that way. But that's what it is. You know. So when and so you have this paradox that's going on even right now, where um, these clashes between different nation states and people among nations trying to solve their economic and political problems, but they're trying to do it without telling the truth of how we got to the where we are. And they're trying to restore the economic systems based on the blind faith systems of Sylvester and and all that, with this tithing system that they have been governing the planet for quite some time with. And so the people are in this state of mind that they can't live because they've been trained to this, that they cannot survive if they don't pay taxes to Rome. They'll move Rome, and instead of saying taxes, they'll instead of saying tithe, they'll say tax. And so they don't know that this is where the priesthood, by design and by fraud, have actually infiltrated or taken over 90 or more percent of all governmental structures on Midgard Earth. And this is the source of almost all of your problems. And the fact that they know much of, not all, the ancient sciences of Hikupta, and they hide. So when they're talking about the ancient science, in modern world, some people say Moorish science. They'll say the Saba knowledge or keeping the Sabbath all mean the same thing. They're simply really talking about how things really work here at Midgard. That's the truth. They will not tell the people the truth that when the 72 scholars, they'll say septa, which means seven. Well, they'll not tell the truth about the 72 scholars that the popes assigned to modify the Septuaginta and to leave out of the Septuaginta Fatima, Muhammad, etc. So when people talk about Muhammad and Fatima, they're thinking Holy Quran only, etc. And it never dawns on them that the science of the hemispheres, the northern hemisphere of the Amophorites, is symbolized by Muhammad. In the secret societies, when they refer to the mountaintop, they're talking about Muhammad's mountain, which is also dealing with the hex alpha principle of balance and isonomy, which is the carpenter's tools symbolized by the compass and the square, or they say Jesus was a carpenter. So these metaphors are actually dealing with charting the stars, charting navigation, not just on Midgard or in the waters, but also actually with star systems. So when you're talking about a sextant and a rudder, that has always been used for navigation, for mooring on this planet, on at Midgard, which is why whether you were referring to airships or or ethereal ships, or you're talking about water ships. So if you're talking about Yahweh, which is really earth, air, fire, and water, not a being. Whenever you would transport the ships, air, fire, water, earth, you would call it mooring. And so this is how the term, even though they hide the real origin, because they don't tell the people the real history, whenever you're moving, shipping, they'll call it mooring the ship. And because the hybrids have taken over the imperial uh, dynasties of Hikupta, they'll hide it behind the word or the name Peter. So when you see them promoting Peter, Peter, Pita, Pita, Pata, Pata, and so their people are looking at, from a connotative perspective, they keep looking at men or these images of a guy in a jalabu walking around loving Jesus type thing. But that's for children. That's for children. But you're really simply talking about dynasty operations, ephemerides readings, and charting, and movement and mooring of ships of Yahweh, which we air, fire, earth, and water, all the methods. And so people are just, kind of don't get it when they're looking at travel through the earth. They're looking at travel on the earth. They're looking at travel above the earth, etc., via earth, air, fire, and water. And that's just simply a part of the fact of how this planet has always been operating. The difficulty we have right now is that the tools and the institutions that have been used, and you can call them the Antichrist tools, to keep humanity in a box, sort of like in a box. Um, and then when you look at the Berber tribe stories, like the Arabian Nights and stuff like this. This is where also you'll see the metaphors and the stories where the genie gets out of the bottle, and that operates on multiple levels. Because remember, when you look into African stories, they're always telling you more than one thing. So there's both them finding out, or what they would call the secrets of alchemy, or using base metals to create gold. And we got more gold on this planet than they'll ever tell you anyway. So it's sort of like for them to go through all this stuff is really just trying to maintain control. But their real concern is us getting that among us, among our people. They know that they are, because it operates in nature, that some of these women, by virtue of their vibrational state, and what you say, the harmonics with Midgard or with Mother Nature, will produce what has always been called champions. And the champions is another cover up for the unique. They're not really unique, but you can say every once in a while they will give birth to daughters and sons who come here for the specific purpose of bringing balance. And this is where, say, the images anthropomorphic of like Serapis and Jesus and Muhammad and Zikrab, etc., all of them, that's where that comes in. But these are only stories of energies. So and this is also when you see the keys to rulership, or the rod, say, my rod and the staff which will comfort me, and you see the high house, the ruler of the high house doing like this. That's the rod, that's the staff. Those are tools.
Okay.
And weapons. So
when you would see
that's the rod and the staff that you talk about in the Bible. The rod and that staff shall comfort me. There was protectors. And you see the Ankh. So the Ankh is actually the womb. See, so but you got to look at the metaphor. See, the Ankh is symbolic of the womb, but the womb, though it's in the body, it's also, because it's not immediately what you call visual from the eye as you see it, as you see the body, you understand its operation. So it's an abstract, and so that would be called what? The secret chamber. You see, and so that's the dark chamber. And so, and it's they call it sometimes the chamber of the moon. And so when you look at the different, even the different temples and things that Africans did or constructed over the millennia, they would take on those names and stuff like that. And so that you'll know, because it all has to do with the moon and the sun. And that's not the only sun. It's not the only moon. However, the how they operates at Midgard is that it governs the flow of the water. So you'll see one face of it, and it operates on 13 and on 9. And so you'll see as women and all other feminine principle that's manifest in the physical produces, it will be governed by the moon calendar. That's why when you look at African culture, you got to look at it from a bicameral perspective, so that a lot of the confusion that exists now would not exist. See, so when the hybrids teach the history, they will teach the history only by the sun calendar, when they know that it's bicameral. And then you will see in the Picts in say in Phoenicia, you'll see them the ancient Moorish Picts. They will use a symbol of the eagle, the double-headed eagle, with its head pointed two different ways, the opposite 190.
Is that like the two reverse?
That's why they use that with 33 degrees.
And the two-party system?
Yes. But it's two chambers of the brain. It's the two chambers of the brain, to the chambers of heaven. And so when the connection of all of the sites are in place, because you got to remember, when they ruled, everything was basically done on 7. So even the governmental provinces were generally 7. So they would have, like, say, for instance, if you had a nation state, it would be divided into 7 provinces or 7 territories. That's true.
Someone asked if the 7 sisters were also indicative of the 7 continents.
Well, they would say that, although there's not in that sense. Because the reality, we would say North America and South America, but North America and South America is one continent, in truth.
But you were, can I? Well, go ahead.
But go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to interject earlier when you were talking about some of the things that are in the pipeline to be revealed, that have existed, for a long period of time, that have been hidden from humanity or the masses. We always call the masses, like, say, the 99%.
Yeah.
So in terms of what we've been listening to with regard to, say, the med beds and things like that, things that regenerate limbs, things that regenerate minds and take away.
Now you're going back to Genesis.
Right.
See, so Genesis, again, is not even what people think it is.
No.
Even the view, because the book has been majorly altered. The interesting thing is, even though they altered the books, because that book is contemporary to us, truthfully, to be honest with you. But